Black Dragons, 5-color Bring to Light. And speaking with Joe a little bit, Ken Crocker getting an idea of what Joe's plan is in this matchup. Joe does not feel like the matchup is very good for him, and he's even considering boarding out Jace immediately for the sideboard games.
I think this is Lossett's worst pull of the top 8. Yeah. This is the worst matchup he could have found.
I think it's the worst pull because of how the cards line up, but also I think it's a pretty tough pull because how often do you think he's played against this deck?
Yeah, I mean, this mixture of cards, we've seen some red-black aggro lists. It's not unheard of, but Christopher's is quite a bit different than anything that I've seen.
For Lossett, he'll start things off with a Sunken Hollow. Juliano's going to search up a mountain. It's always fun to see the scenarios take place here. Watch things unfold as a Monastery Swiftspear is going to attack here for 1, bring Lossett down to 19 immediately because, you know, if you're Caleb, you're rooting for Joe. You might not want to play against Joe, but you're rooting for him to win so you can keep your dream alive going to the Players' Championship.
Yeah, a win here for Lossett is not quite as good for Caleb as him winning his own matches, but it's the next best thing.
Swiftspear going to come across here for 1. Lossett going to fall down to 18. What's the follow-up here for Christopher? It'll be a Wooded Foothills. He'll sacrifice that right away. He'll fall down to 18. And now it's a Hangerback Walker. Interesting card in this deck for Juliano, and I say that because Hangerback Walker was a card that trended up so highly that everyone was building their decks in a different way to try to beat this thing, and then it just fell off a cliff.
Well, some of the control decks are not equipped to beat this thing anymore, and this is still one of the best reasonable main deck cards you can have against a Tarka Red. And I think that with Juliano playing with a slightly higher curve, even with the removal spells, I think he's a bit behind in the Tarka Red matchup if he doesn't have a card like this.
Cinderglade off of the Windswept Heath. And now we go back Lossett's way. It'll be a Plains as land number 3. Now, Joe's deck actually does have a little bit of removal that can take care of a Hangerback Walker. Complete Disregard, Obs on Charm, Exiling Effects. He's actually got quite a few of those there in his 75. Bloodstained Mire here for Juliano. Here come the attacks, just 1. Looking to pump up the Hangerback Walker is Christopher. 1 damage will be dealt. That's going to fall down to 16. Christopher's hand does look a little bit land heavy at this stage. And now we're going to see complete disregard.
I think he's just down to Wild Slash and Kolagon. Kept a slightly land heavy hand and has drawn nothing but lands since.
Your thoughts on activating Hangerback Walker and then Wild Slashing it?
Positive. What's Wild Slash doing against Lossett if he's missed on Jace?
That's what Juliano's thinking about right now. And I kind of like this line of play.
Especially with a Kolagon in hand.
Yeah. We're going to see him make this play. Hangerback Walker going to become a 2/2. Wild Slash is going to take care of it. Going to have to use his own card to kill the Hangerback Walker. But now 2 Thopters will come fumbling out. And then we're going to head back Joe Lossett's way. Now, you can't be punished for a play like this. Languish is in Joe's deck, but Christopher doesn't really have very much going on.
Well, you're losing the Hangerback Walker regardless, so it's just a question of whether or not you're willing to cash in a Wild Slash for 2 1/1 flyers. To me, that's a no-brainer here. Lossett does not have a lot of targets for Wild Slash. He already failed to play Jace. That's the biggest bullseye. So I think that decision there for Juliano is pretty straightforward.
Lossett going to search up a swamp there with the Bloodstained Mire. Looks like a Siege Rhino's on the way, and it most certainly is. Lossett's going to push himself back up to 18. Looking to stabilize with the big 4/5. Juliano going to sacrifice his Bloodstained Mire. I imagine a red-black land on the way. And it will be a Smoldering Marsh. These players will shuffle each other's decks here very quickly, and then we will see Christopher Juliano untap and take his 4th turn of the game. As far as getting Siege Rhino off the table, he does have some ways to go about doing that. Murderous Cut in the deck. He'll draw a card now. Picked up a copy of Kolagon's Command. A lot of flexibility in that card. It'll be a mountain. And now Thopters will come in. The second to fall down to 16. Swiftspear going to hang back, can't get through the Rhino, so we head back over to Joe.
And I think Juliano doesn't want to fire off that Kolaghan's Command unless he can follow up with the threat in question in the same turn. With 5 mana in play, I think he would get back the Hangerback Walker and recast it, but with only 4 mana, better just to hold tight.
Just going to pass the turn back a little set. No land to play, no attack to make.
And sitting on an Abzan Charm, I think out of respect for one of Juliano's large plays.
Juliano's going to play Kolaghan's Command now. Looks like he might be thinking shock plus return Hangerback Walker.
I think he's going with a discard route instead.
Yeah.
You know Lossett's hand is nothing but spells, so.
You can get one of them. And it looks like Slumgar's Command is down. Back over to Christopher. Looks like another Kolaghan's Command was the draw.
And I like Juliano here. He knows about Abzan Charm. I think he's much better served this turn just playing a 2/2 Hangerback Walker than trying to do anything with Storm Sphere.
Yep. Eventually, Joe's going to have to tap out to cast something.
Right. And you know he's got Treasure Cruise in his deck. He's got Bring to Light. There's a good chance he taps out for something at sorcery speed. He's got more Siege Rhinos. So you don't want this trading with an Abzan Charm if you can avoid it.
Here are the attacks.
And it's not like a 2/2 Hangerback Walker is a bad consolation prize for your turn.
I think you're fine with that. You might be fine with just a 1/1 Hangerback Walker and then leaving up Kolaghan's Command. A lot of different routes he can go. And now here's a 1/1 Hangerback Walker. Gonna pass the turn back. For Joe Lossett. It'll be a copy of Abzan Charm.
Juliano already rewarded for some patience here.
Yep. Lossett gonna fall down to 12. 2 new cards, however. He'll untap. And now it's time for him to draw. Looks like you found another copy of Complete Disregard. We know about the Treasure Cruise that's in his hand as well.
Tough spot, though. Juliano representing some spell as his leftovers here if he didn't make the Hangerback Walker a 2/2.
It's a polluted Delta.
And Kolaghan is bad news for Lossett if he taps low and that shows up.
He can't afford to take that kind of shot. You mentioned he does not have a lot of life gain in his deck. Rhinos, that's really about it.
Yep.
Lossett with a lot to think about this turn. Looks like he's going to go with the offensive with the Rhino. Juliano going to take 4, going to fall down to 10. Virtual 9 because of that polluted Delta. Lossett with a copy of Bring the Light in hand. Looks like he's going to sacrifice this Delta. And perhaps another Rhino on the way here for Joe.
Could be the one copy of Languish as well.
Yeah.
Not a bad spot for that.
Could clear the board up, leave Juliano with just 1 Thopter token from Hangerback Walker dying.
Yeah, I wonder if there's an argument for Juliano blocking with the Swift Spear there, because that attack seems pretty hard to justify if Languish is not on the way.
Well, here comes Bring the Light.
I suppose Lossett could follow up with a second copy of Siege Rhino and possibly rationalize that attack. So I suppose I agree with Juliano forcing the issue here with a no block.
Well, there is Languish. -4 to everything. Fortunate for Juliano, he does have a little bit of flexibility with his Kolaghan's Command on how he wants to use it. It's a good spell to have available right now.
Yep.
Can finish off the Rhino after it gets -4/-4. rebuy something. It's up to him.
Yeah, finishing off the Rhino is the real prize. I imagine he still wants to get back Hangerback Walker more than the Swift Spear. But I suppose with Kolagon in hand, that's not a guarantee. More haste creatures are a premium when you have Kolagon. Though Hangerback Walker is also not shabby.
Yep. Juliano going to fall down to 9. Might be a basic mountain on the way. Could be another copy of Smoldering Marsh. Looks like it will be a marsh. Kolagon's command now. We'll see what modes he selects. He's going to Shock Joe, return Monastery Swift Spear, and in combination with Kolagon, this game just might be over right now as there's a Swift Spear. Here's Kolagon going to be dashed. It's going to pump up the attackers, and I see myself an attack here for 9, Patrick. And that is going to do it. Christopher Juliano is going to win game number 1 here over Joe Lossett. Red Black Dragons very quickly up a game here over 5-color Bring to Light. And
it's not like Lossett could be mad about his draw there.
Yep.
Had a lot going on. Siege Rhino, some removal spells, was able to find his one Languish. But Juliano's deck there, you get to see the mixture of speed and durability that he has. He was able to get on the board early. He also was able to weather the storm of removal spells with cards like Kolagon's Command and Kolagon.
To the sideboards we are going to go. Joe Lossett's going to be on the play here for game number 2. It's a Dispel, 2 copies of Hallowed Moonlight, negate 4 copies of Surge of Righteousness, an Offense of the Foremost, an Infinite Obliteration, 2 Painful Truths, 2 Radiant Flames, and a Talent of the Telepath.
I really like the 4 copies of Surge of Righteousness, obviously. It's a deck with a bunch of large red and black creatures that attack. Pretty straightforward there. Past that, is Radiant Flames even good in this matchup? You know, there's enough of a top end that Juliano has that Radiant Flames doesn't touch. I'm sure that some of it will come in because Lossett's got some clunkers in his deck, but past the 4 copies of Surge of Righteousness, there's no superstars here.
For Christopher Juliano, 2 Scab Clan Berserker, 2 Outpost Siege, 2 Negates on the splash, 2 Ultimate Price, 3 Duress, and then 4 copies of Self-Inflicted Wound.
This is an excellent sideboard for this matchup. I don't know how much he wants to cut here. I think the copies of Wild Slash and Draconic Roar are fairly easy to take out of the deck. And you're looking at cards like Duress, Outpost Siege, and Scab Clan Berserker all seem great to me. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Juliano played with a couple copies of Self-Inflicted Wound, though bringing in the full 4 seems like a lot to me.
Well, those are the options there for both players. They get to see each other's deck list, so they'll try to sideboard to the best of their ability here. And while they do that, we will talk about the schedule for Season 1 on the SCG Tour next year. We are kicking things off here in Las Vegas. What you can't see behind us, actually, is there is an open taking place, our standard open, where players like, man, we got a pretty good crowd back there, honestly. Huey Jensen among them.
So I was done with 2 rounds to go yesterday. I thought I was just going to go back to the hotel room and relax. I just stuck around. I was getting my bird on all day long.
Yeah, I was actually as well. You know, we saw Huey Jensen, Matt Costa, Sam Pardee, a bunch of guys that we see on the Open Series as well, getting ready to do battle, perhaps on the hunt for some SCG points for next year. And you see what lines up starting in January when we're in Cincinnati.
Yeah, 2 weekends of Modern with Cincinnati and Charlotte, followed up with 2 weekends of Standard in Atlanta and Columbus. Then the Regional Championship, February 6th, which will be Modern. Go.starcitygames.com/regionals for more information. Modern the following weekend in Louisville, then a Legacy Open in Philadelphia. After that, we head over to Indianapolis for a Standard Open in Baltimore, and then the Season 1 Invitational, Columbus, Ohio, April 15th through the 17th with Standard and Modern as the invitational formats.
Of course, if you do join any of our Opens, you will get access to the Kitchen Links playmat.
Just making a mess.
Yeah, it's
free.
Yeah,
you just sign up and you get this thing.
Yeah, it's just a free cat making a mess. And it's nice you don't have to clean it up because it's on a playmat. Free limited edition playmat with entry into any Season 1 Open. You sign up, you get one.
This is a gift you can give to someone who doesn't even play Magic.
That's actually just true.
You could just, that's just a funny picture that someone would like to own. And if you get the joke, that's great too.
Do you have a friend who needs a mouse pad? Boom.
There you go.
That's all I use my playmats for. They're just mouse pads for me.
They're currently my retirement portfolio, so I'm not comfortable with breaking them out for everyday use. But to each their own, free, with registration for any of the Season 1 Opens all the way through the Invitational in Columbus.
Do my playmats have teriyaki sauce on them everywhere?
I believe it.
I'm not going to answer that. They might, they may not. one of them certainly does.
I am long on playmats. I am exposed. If the playmat market ever crashes, you're going to see me on the side of the road, burlap satchel.
Covered in playmats.
Covered in playmats, yeah.
Just covered in them. That will be your kind of big coat just made out of playmats. What if, you know what I'm going to do for you? You give me all your playmats, I'll make you a quilt out of them.
I'm just hoping.
That's what I'll do.
I am really, really hoping to find someone who will buy them. If not now, then somewhere down the line.
One of my best friends in Seattle, his mom actually made a quilt out of all of his band shirts. So, you know, Taking Back Sunday, Motion City soundtrack and all that stuff is like the best quilt I've ever seen. I'll just take all your playmats, stitch them all together.
It'll just be a mishmash of various artworks of Magic over the last 7 years.
Yeah, you'll be comfy and cozy and memories abound.
I would rather sell them and buy a quilt, among other things, with the proceeds.
Until the market crashes. So you better get out quick. We're underway here in game number 2. It's a Zergo Bellstriker here for Juliano to start things off. For Lossett, he started things off with a Cinderglade. Got to get that mana online for this 5-color deck. Now, speaking to Joe, he said he was going to consider boarding Jace out, but that's a tough thing to do because, well, Jace is a really good card.
Well, you got to pick something, and it's good for Lossett if he can alleviate his need to get blue mana early on in the game, because blue doesn't really pair with any of his removal spells. So if he can release the need to get blue mana early on in the game, it makes curving into removal and Siege Rhino a lot smoother for him. And I think his best game plan is to try to curve into removal into Siege Rhino.
I think Joe's deck after sideboard becomes a weird Abzan deck.
Yeah.
Wild Slash going to take your Den Protector. Here's an attack for 2.
Well, the problem is that his deck isn't fast enough to keep up early, configured in the 5-color build. Nor is he a lot to win the game if it goes on late. I mean, he went turn 4, Siege Rhino, turn 5, Bring to Light, and got killed.
Yeah.
So at that point, you need to really modify what your deck's up to, because you're not favored early and you're not necessarily favored late.
For what it's worth, it was turn 4 Siege Rhino, turn 5 Bring to Light, kill your board.
Right.
Yeah. And leave myself with a Rhino, and that wasn't going to do it. One of the things I love about Juliano's deck is that he gets to bring in the negates because they're so good in this matchup. I absolutely adore the ability to do that. He's going to search up a basic mount right now with Christopher, and he's got a copy of Negate in hand. So if he's able to find a fetch line necessary to be able to search up the blue source, he'll be pretty good to go. Time for Christopher to untap and take a draw. Flamewake Phoenix is a card I like.
Timely.
I know it can die to complete disregard, but I say make him have it.
Well, your Zergo also dies to complete disregard.
Absolutely.
Gotta cast something. It's good to see if you can find a different route here that doesn't involve exposing to the Phoenix to removal on curve. But this play is also great if Lossett's turn happens to be Abzan Charm.
Yeah. Here's an attack for 4. Lossett's going to fall down to 13. Again, you think about the decks that are so heavily played in Standard. You think about Jeskai Black. You think about a Tarka Red. This 5-color Bring to Light deck starting to pick up some momentum. All that stuff. But what you don't oftentimes see is this Red Black Dragons deck that Christopher Juliano went 7-1 through the Standard portion with.
And I like a lot of what's going on in the deck list. I would be a bit concerned about being so burn heavy in a format where Soulfire Grandmaster plus burn spells is one of the defining interactions of the control decks. But I like the fact that Juliano gets off to some pretty explosive starts himself, but isn't just dead to a Languish. He isn't just dead to a Siege Rhino. In fact, he beat both of those cards pretty easily last game.
There's a Canopy Vista there for Joe off of the Windswept Heath. You saw his Delta search up in Islands. That means the Vista can enter the battlefield untapped thanks to the 2 basics out there. And I think we're going to see a Siege Rhino on the way here as the white from the Vista, the green from the Cinderglade, and the swamp on the battlefield means he can cast the 4/5. So here comes the Rhino. Lossett going to go up to 14. Julian going to fall down to 16. Now it's time for Christopher to untap and draw. Thunderbreak region. The skies appear to be the place to be.
Self-inflicted wound in hand as well. Thunderbreak region's a lot more mana efficient, but it does expose him in a big way to Languish, and he has to be very cautious about that because he's playing against a deck with Bring to Light and can go find it at a moment's notice. This is a less powerful play, which is getting the Rhino off the table, but it is also much safer.
Rhino down. Treasure Cruise the draw. Lossett's at 8. I don't know if Christopher Juliano came to beat a deck like this, but he's beating the crap out of it right now.
Well, you can see what the plan is. He's got a lot of removal for Jeskai decks. He's got some threats that are pretty challenging to answer or get value on the way out, like the Hangerback Walker and Thunderbreak region. And there's a lot of haste and a lot of flying in a format where the control decks are playing at sorcery speed and trying to block on the ground. So even though this mixture of cards you don't see a lot of, it's attacking a lot of the common vulnerabilities of the format.
We have an update on our backup match. It's Vidianto Wajaya, up a game here with Justin Rios. Esper Dragons up a game over Obs on aggro. Lossett going to search up a Smoldering Marsh there with his Wooded Foothills. 5 mana going to be tapped. And it looks like Bring to Light on the way. We saw him search for Languish last time. Will he do it again? The answer is yes. Languish going to clear up the creatures.
And Juliano paid off for the play he made last turn. If he just tapped out for Thunderbreak region, could have been really bad news.
Christopher will draw a card. I believe a copy of Kolaghan's Command. He'll sacrifice this Wooded Foothills.
I think it may have been self-inflicted wound, which is also great.
Perfectly fine. There's another copy of Smoldering Marsh. Juliano without the blue mana to cast Negate just yet. It's time for Thunderbreak region. Doesn't have the mana to rebuy the Flamewake Phoenix just yet. That might come next turn. Looks like a fetch line to draw here for Lossett.
But early on, I can already tell this matchup is just grueling for Lossett.
Yeah.
He's under the gun early. His blockers to try to stabilize the game are getting killed. His removal spells aren't working for a variety of reasons. He doesn't have the time to leverage his more expensive spells. It feels like he's falling behind in every phase of the game through the first 2 games.
Treasure Cruise on the cheap.
You know, he's got Obzon Charm against Flamewake Phoenix, and he's got complete disregard against Thunderbreak Regent. So that sort of stuff has already been an issue.
3 cards coming. Can he find the right combination of cards? Surge of Righteousness has been found. What do we have here? A Rhino. Let's set up to 10. Juliano down to 12. Pass the turn. Christopher gonna draw. Bloodstained Mire is absolutely huge here.
Yep, and that gives him a lot of good lines here. It gives him access to his Sunken Hollow if he wants it for the negate in hand.
Flamewake Phoenix is coming on back.
So I think this turn is going to be get back Flamewake Phoenix, self-inflicted wound you, hold up negate.
Yeah.
So
best possible.
That's a tough turn.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Lossett will draw. Joe looking at Surge of Righteousness in hand. I believe there's a Dispel over there too.
And Dispel is, you know, there aren't that many instants in Juliano's deck. It says, I think the threat answer dichotomy here is lining up really badly for Lossett because he needs to answer everything on curve, and not every answer answers every threat. And when you're a control deck and you're under the gun on turn 1 and your mana causes you to take damage and it doesn't come into play on time and you're stumbling out of the gates because you miss colors of mana, and your answers don't necessarily answer stuff, and you have no way to stabilize the game cleanly, these are all the makings of a very poor matchup for a control deck.
So it's not anybody's game.
We've seen crazier comebacks in terms of matchups and deficits. You know, the Alex Bistecki's Invitational, that was the last one we covered.
Yeah.
And that was also, I felt, not a great matchup, and Bistecki was also kind of getting the bad end of it in some of the you know, the randomness, variance, luck elements of the game as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's impossible, but these first 2 games for Lossett have to be dispiriting because his draws were acceptable, and it never felt like he was close to stabilizing the game.
Well, it might be time to go back to the drawing board here for Joe as these players do shuffle up, reconsider things for sideboarding. We'll find out how things are going to shake out here for game number 3. Joe Lossett's going to be on the play. Now for Joe, part of what was important for him to qualify for the Players' Championship was regionals this year. And regionals we will have again next year on Pro Tour weekend. Regionals is a very popular promotion, of course. We've got a brand new playmat for it, which is really, really cool. And more information at go.starcitygames.com/regionals.
Though unlike the Open Series playmat, this is limited for the first 200 players to register for their regional championships. If you register in the first 200 players and receive this playmat, you will also receive a free foil token.
Now, again, for the Players' Championship next year, we've kind of changed the structure for the SCG Tour. So to qualify for the Players' Championship, the way to get SCG points are the Opens, the Classics that take place on day 2, and the Regional Championships when they do occur on Pro Tour weekend. So that's it. You see the breakdown there. Of course, cash is going to be awarded. Qualifications to Invitationals be rewarded. But most importantly, the SCG points. If you get first place at your regional, that's 15 points. That's big because we've said so many times during the SCG Tour, you never know which match, how many points you're going to need. Caleb Scherer, I think, a living example of that this year.
If you have no aspirations to try to get to the Players' Championship, you're still looking at qualifications for the Invitational, and even if that doesn't matter to you for whatever reason, there's a lot of money on the line. So make sure to head over to your Regionals Championships. February 6th, that will be Modern. You can go to go.starcitygames.com/regionals for more information.
Game number 3 about to be underway here between Christopher Juliano and Joe Lossett. It's been a great year here for Joe. Headed back to the Players' Championship, proof that a West Coast player can do it. And he's one of the very best. So many accomplishments on the resume for him. A second Invitational top 8. And proving that he's more than just a Miracles player.
Yes, and at this point, I think it's even disingenuous to call him Legacy Specialist because his accomplishments in Standard definitely dwarf what he's been able to do in Legacy, at least on the Open Series.
4 Standard Open wins. He's shown a real propensity for being able to play Standard with a lot of different decks, be them aggressive decks at times, sometimes combo decks that we saw with Humanimator many years ago, and now with this 5-color Bring to Light deck. Of course, he likes to try to play a controlling game, which is what he's doing here with this 5-color Bring to Light deck, but he can really do it across all formats. I think Modern is his weakest. I think he'll be the first to tell you that. He was not impressed with the way he played Tron, and again, I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe switches to a different Modern deck next week in the Players' Championship.
No, I can't recall him really gravitating to any Modern strategy besides Tron, so maybe it's just an issue of getting the reps in rather than switching up the deck.
Yeah. But the resume is quite impressive here for Joe. And the Players' Championship next weekend for him, we saw him spice it up last year, switching his deck in Legacy, switching to Reanimator after playing Miracles so much and everyone expecting him to play Miracles and no one ready for that Reanimator deck. And I'm curious to see if he will do that again next weekend.
Yeah, the metagame, I know that you know that I like to play this deck, so I'm going to be playing this other thing instead, but you know that I know that you know that I know this.
Yep.
It makes the metagaming stuff very interesting.
Yeah, it really does. And I remember last year when I found out that he was playing Reanimator, not playing Miracles, I was awestruck. I thought it was awesome, trying to juke people that way.
Though Miracles is a pretty safe deck to play in a format like that because there aren't a whole lot of decks in the format where you would say, oh, this definitely just blows out Miracles. It has some not great matchups, but there's no locks. That's not how that deck works.
You never know if someone's coming across with 12 post, man.
Yes, 12 posts, I suppose.
Last year when you had Joe there and Reed Duke, that's 2 Miracles players almost guaranteed. So you might want to take the Hail Mary if you don't feel confident in Legacy.
Given the popularity of Storm in recent events, 12 posts is not a deck that I would want to go near.
Probably not a great idea for this year. It does have solid matchups, but I do not think Storm is one of them. Again, if we do have time to jump over to our backup match, I think we will. It's Vidianto Wajaya and Justin Rios. Esper Dragons, Obs on aggro. Wajaya, the #1 overall seed. Rios, your number 8. Rios with an 8-0 performance in Modern this weekend, beating Todd Anderson in round 16 to get in what was a horrible matchup for him. Green-Red Tron for Rios, Infect for Anderson. But an upset victory puts Rios into the top 8. And now he's got another opponent on his side. A very difficult player to beat in Vidianto Wajaya, who has destroyed this tournament.
Definitely the easiest winner of the Swiss rounds.
Yeah. Lossett's going to keep, and now he'll scry. That top card will go to the bottom for Joe. You said you felt this was Joe's worst draw as far as matchups go.
Of any of the 7 decks he could have played in the top 8, this is the worst one.
Smoldering Marsh there for Christopher. That's how he'll start his game. No 1-drop for a change. There's a Den Protector face up for Joe, and you can tell just how difficult the matchup is for him, that he feels that he's got to play the 2-1 face up instead of just grinding out value with it.
Yeah, he does not have the luxury. The issue is the matchup's fast enough that he has to play Den Protector face up to block, but it's not so fast that he's locked to win the game if the game goes on for a long time.
Here is Duress, Abzan Charm, Crackling Doom are the choices. Den Protector and a copy of Bloodstained Mire cannot be selected. Any thoughts on what to take here?
Whatever is the, I mean, Lossett's going to be able to get whatever back in the long term over via Den Protector, so it's probably just what curves out Joe most efficiently. I guess because the Abzan Charm can be cast more easily than the Crackling Doom. I guess they're both about as far away from each other as being cast. He's missing a color man on both. It's a wash, and I guess you just get the card drawer out of there.
A Mountain and a passing of the turn here from Christopher, so it's not an aggressive start. There's the Bloodstained Mire. Here comes Den Protector. Joe gets the opportunity to be the aggressor here, at least for right now. Curious to see if Joe does want to play a Morph this turn. He certainly has the option to use all of his mana, and it looks like he's going to take it. Going to sacrifice a Bloodstained Mire. I think we'll see a battle land on the way since it'll enter the battlefield untapped. One thing it cannot do, however, as you mentioned, is it cannot search for white mana.
Yeah, I was probably getting a Sunken Hollow here. I think that's the only way to diversify his colors of mana in play, since he already has green and black. I suppose you can go get a Mountain, like a red dual of some sort, but probably more pressure to get blue.
This is a tough choice, actually. This decision cascades into other decisions moving forward. I think he might be a little unsure of himself. He's got to consult the grip. But he'll go with the Sunken Hollow. And now he'll play a Morph. He'll shuffle his deck while Juliano does take the turn. Wild Slash to draw here for Christopher.
Wild Slash is not a shabby draw here, though. I think Juliano might be missing his 3rd land drop, because you take care of the Den Protector, Lossette's down to 2 cards in hand. You know he's having some issues with his color mana. You're only facing down a Den Protector at that point. If you happen to rub off some lands in a row, your position becomes very good.
Well, there is a Wild Slash to take care of Den Protector. You mentioned the mana issues it appears Christopher is having. And all he can do is pass the turn back over to Lossett. Lossett picks up a copy of Dispel. Den Protector going to come in. Juliano's going to fall down to 16. Lossett will just pass the turn back. A Mountain is a nice draw. Is it time for Flame Wake Phoenix? It is. There's an attack for 2.
I think Juliano is very well served by racing here. A lot of spells in hand. Lossett fumbling around a little bit. I like that a lot better than casting Self-Inflicted Wound.
Den Protector going to come across for 2 more. Now we head back Juliano's way. Lossett going to miss another land drop. Draconic Roar the draw. You see that Juliano's left in maybe a little more removal than expected.
I was anticipating him to shorten up on that a little bit, but he has left in a lot of removal.
It's an attack for 4. Lossett will draw a card, Utter End. Not so much. Here comes Den Protector again.
Mana's a mess, and he's not getting the time to draw out of it.
Yep. Juliano will draw. Monastery Swiftspear is not too bad.
Swiftspear into Self-Inflicted Wound this turn, or Draconic Roar, depending.
It looks like it will be Draconic Roar. No Dragon to reveal, as there's a Dispel. And here come the beatdowns. It'll be for 6. Lossett's going to fall down to 7. Lossett's draw is a complete disregard. Now Den Protector's going to try to hang out on defense. Juliano will draw. He's got a copy of Kolaghan's Command. Here's Self-Inflicted Wound. Den Protector down.
Lossett's fallen to 1 this turn.
There's the complete disregard to take care of Flame Wake Phoenix. You mentioned it. He is going to fall down to 1. And we know Juliano's hand is all spells. Lossett will draw a card. It's a copy of Surge of Righteousness. And that is going to do it. Christopher Juliano is going to win this match here over Joe Lossett 3-0. It might have been Joe's worst draw of the bracket, but we could also argue it was Juliano's best. He's moving on to the semifinals.
Yep, and Lossett there, game number 3, mulligan, and couldn't quite get off the ground, which is going to happen to his deck a percentage of the time, but you can't really complain about your draws in games 1 and 2. Solid hands of removal spells, Siege Rhinos. He was on the play. His mana cooperated, but I think Juliano's mixture of powerful top end alongside a quick curve to get on top of the game is just a very difficult mixture of cards for Lossett to compete with.
It's a very, very bad matchup there for Joe. It's a good run for him this weekend.